Lafrance here, Stream of Consciousness series, and in this video we are going to talk about Jesus was for real or he was crazy. And in the last episode, I was talking about last video, I was talking about Elon Musk and simulations and how 95% of the world believes in this higher power, and whatever that looks like for you, and that in essence we are in a temporary realm. So now, this topic of Jesus. Now, understand, this one is, I like this one because for so many people, the name Jesus is so offensive. And I do blame Christians, well-meaning Christians, for that one, because I don't think he's been represented very well. But from a left-brained person who and I love history and I've studied history, I think it's very important for people to understand, first and foremost, outside of the realm of if you don't believe in Jesus, then you burn for eternity, and all the way stuff has been twisted so terribly throughout time. But the reality is that Jesus did exist. So I mean, let's kind of hit this first and foremost. So from a Christian perspective, we can go into just the anomaly of, or the kind of the undeniable elements of just reading ancient texts, that prior to Jesus kind of showing up on the scene, in all of the writings that were done hundreds of years leading up to him showing up on the scene, there were 55 Old Testament prophecies that were so, it would be impossible. You would have to be in complete and total denial to deny that the accuracy of what was stated, declaring him, prophetically declaring the coming of this man many, many years in the future. You'd have to be a little stubborn not to recognize, okay, well, that is a little strange. The level of intimate detail about where he was born, how he lived his life, and exactly how he died. But now let's talk about Josephus. So Josephus was not a follower of Christ. Josephus was a well-respected throughout history historian. He was basically the historian of the Jews. And in the 18th book of the in his writings, the 18th book called I believe it's the Antiquity of the Jews, he made some rather amazing statements about, there at this time there was this man who just kind of showed up on the scene, whose name was Jesus of Nazareth, and if you could call him a man, because the things that he did confounded all logic. I am ad-libbing here a bit, but he talked, the miracles that he performed talked about the fact that he was killed for what he did, and that the followers of Jesus are basically taking over the world to this day. This man was not a Christian, but even he in and of himself was like, I can't deny what this guy did. I'm not going to say that I'm with him or against him because he's a little controversial, but when this guy is writing what he is writing, there's kind of the proof that Jesus did in fact exist and did perform miracles. Oh, and he does mention that he was killed and rose on the third day, and writes it in a way that is kind of out. Like, if you read it for yourself, it's very, very interesting how he writes this. And throughout history, many people have quoted him as an example. But my big point is, so when Josephus is saying, if you could even call him a man, because he was aware of the fact, and everyone was aware of the fact, that Jesus, this man who's performing miracles, has been called a prophet. But one of the things that I find to be particularly interesting is that Jesus left no possible way for him to be interpreted as just a man who was just a teacher or a prophet. And that is because of the fact that he declared himself to be the Son of Man, the Son of God, the Savior of the world. So either if a guy was walking around doing really nice things and healing people and had those powers, that would be one thing. That would be amazing enough on its own. But if you're walking into, if someone's got schizophrenia and they're like, I am God, you're normally like, oh, okay, like a cookie. Like, you wouldn't be taking that seriously. If Jesus was bipolar, he would have his ups and he would have his downs. He wouldn't have there would be elements of his life that would align with the mental illness. If he was, even if he was a sociopath, everything would be about self-promotion. Everything would be about promoting himself. But when they wanted to make him king, he was refusing. He wasn't there for the reasons he was there for. This is a much larger topic, and I invite you to look into this yourself, just on the man himself. There is no possible way for this man to be one or the other. C.S. Lewis, who wrote like the Chronicles of Narnia and Mere Christianity and other great books, described himself as the most reluctant convert in the history of Christendom, because from an atheist perspective, he was looking at the world, looking at Jesus, and looking at all these things and kind of going, I've based on just sheer rational logic, I have no choice. And I think he was a lot like me, going, most Christians probably irritated the hell out of him. But take that with a grain of salt. But he called it, not the great dilemma, but the great trilemma, that Jesus was either a madman, a sociopathic liar, or he was the Son of God. So if he was one of the first two, that, someone's impacted the world when 2,000 years later they're still using his name as a swear word. That's one thing. But I think it's kind of an important thing to state. And how Jesus reveals himself to other people in other religions, I believe our way of describing how he does that is beyond our understanding, and I believe we have really screwed up. I think we're so close-minded that we're borderline on stupid. But you can't... He was either an insane person, a compulsive liar, or he was who he says he was. He can't. He removed it of his own doing, that he could not be just a prophet or just a teacher. That's my thoughts on the topic. Interested in your comments? I'm sure there'll be a few on this one. All right, moving on. Next topic for our next video will be life. It's not so serious. This will be a fun one.